So, Twan is in the chat, and shout out to Twan from the 704 Charlotte Bound Show. Twan and I had an interesting conversation, and there was a point that we brought up that I wanted to hone in on. Man, you better be careful about how you talk about Will Levis.
As like a way to get any sort of last-minute tiebreakers on some of those picks?
Not really. It's just a fair question, but not really. It's just more been, this mini camp, just more kind of a methodical next step process. Okay, thank you.
So there you have it. So I saw that, and I find it interesting that the same day that I see that, I see this. And I'm like, wait, what? Excuse me? The odds go from plus 5,000 to today plus 400. Now, I, like many of you, are not extremely familiar with how the betting odds work. But I know enough to know this. That literally takes a guy from being in complete obscurity for the number one pick to pretty much being the lock. And when I saw that, I was like, man. So Twan is in the chat. And shout out to Twan from the 704 Charlotte Bound Show. Twan and I had an interesting conversation, and there was a point that we brought up that I wanted to hone in on. And I kept saying, and Twan agreed, because Twan has echoed a similar sentiment, man, you better be careful about how you talk about Will Levis. And I was saying it in the context of, hey, I wouldn't want to see him in the division, right? But now it seems like things have changed. Now we're seeing it in the context of, oh, you might not want to see him on your team. I'm going to be in full support, as I've mentioned time and time again, of whoever they draft. But I can promise you this. You are kidding yourself if you think John Farmer on draft night is not going to show his behind if we draft this man number one overall. I'm sorry. Call it bias, call it what you want. It's an incredible jump. And like you, Twan, I believe that it's Vegas trying to make money. That's what I'd like to believe. But I just find it too interesting that the timing, I still personally believe it's Bryce. I still personally want it to be Bryce. But it would be it is very interesting that this drops on the day that they have this press conferences and he says that, oh, the pick is in. So then I asked myself, okay, well then let's just hypothetically suggest that it is him, and we got to roll with it. I have a guy that done a film study on him that I follow pretty, intently because he's very, very smart. And I'm going to play this video. This is A to Z film study on Will Levis and why he believes that Will Levis is absolutely a first-round pick. Not necessarily the number one pick, but a first-round pick nonetheless. Let's react.
I try to avoid listening to other draft analysis before I've had a chance to watch the tape myself because I don't want to develop biases or opinions that aren't based on what I see on film, but it was impossible to ignore all the negativity surrounding Will Levis. Heading into this video, I was expecting him to be somewhat of a scrub, and so I was surprised to see that he actually does check a lot of the boxes that you want for a first-round quarterback prospect. He has elite arm talent. There are a lot of comparisons to Josh Allen, and I don't think Levis's arm is as explosive, but he can easily push the ball 55 to 60 yards downfield, and what's most impressive about Will Levis is that he doesn't need a clean pocket to step into to get these throws off.
And this is where the anomaly that is Josh Allen could potentially change drastically. Josh Allen said something going into minicamp just a couple of days ago. It might have been a week ago or something like that. Maybe some of you saw this, right? But there was a quote that came out where Josh Allen said, I'm going to change my playing style. And I was like, oh boy. Because the very thing that makes you successful, guys like him, this is why I'm so much more pro Bryce or cerebral kind of guy. I would even say CJ for that matter. I don't care if CJ can't move around. Many people think that there's this misconception of like, oh, the athletic quarterback, is like the dominant now. No, it's always been a thinking man's position. Always, right? Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, all of these bigger super athletic guys are being are being scouted because of what you're seeing from Josh Allen. But if he has an extreme dip in production, and if that extreme dip in production comes as a result of him changing his playing style and taking away that threat, I'm telling you, it's going to change how people start looking at the position.